I've been a parish priest for 45 plus years now, but for 43 of those years, I've had a part-time assignment also to work each week in the tribunal of the Diocese of Richmond. The tribunal is that branch throughout the Catholic Church. It's sort of like the Justice Department. It deals with different kinds of trials. One of the responsibilities of a tribunal in a diocese is to protect the sacraments of the Church, since it's through the 7 sacraments of the Church that Jesus Christ brings us to salvation. They're conferred through the Church to us. When there is a dispute or a serious question about the validity of a sacrament, then the tribunal is called in to investigate, look into the matter, and make a decision whether it happened or not. For example, a person may question whether or not their baptism was valid or not, conferred, or if a man was validly ordained a priest or deacon or not. Those are rare trials, but they happen. But the most often the case is with the sacrament of matrimony, which what the gospel points to in the first reading. The question before the Church often is, when is a person's marriage valid or not valid? And notice the clear demand by Jesus in the gospel tonight. He forbids divorce. He repeats it and emphasizes it. And he says bad things happen from a divorce. In the Hebrew times, a woman lost her husband. If he just dismissed her, they didn't have the court systems of today that paid her alimony or a share of the inheritance, split the goods and stuff like that. You know, when Bill Gates divorces his wife, Melinda, she's going to be a very rich woman, all right? There it is. But in the ancient world, she would have to go out and find another husband to have a decent life. That's how harsh it was. When God performed the marriage of Adam and Eve, which is the first reading we heard tonight, he intended their partnership to last forever. Ironically, God creates marriage after he creates the man and woman, while paradise is still paradise. The Garden of Eden is perfect. They are immortal. So they're not going to live until death do them part. They're going to live forever and ever until the sin. And then they're going to have a death someday, marriage until death do them part. Jesus adds that divorce is forbidden by saying these words, which we use every time it's a Catholic wedding. What God has joined together, no human being must separate. The old days when I was in grade school, what God has joined together, let no one put asunder. Don't cut it off. There it is. Now, 500 years ago, a very powerful king of England wrote a religious book during the time of Martin Luther and the Protestant revolt and Reformation, when Germany and other places were breaking with their ancient allegiance with the Catholic Church. So this king wrote a book defending the 7 sacraments because some of the Protestants denied many of the sacraments as means of salvation. Henry VIII was the king's name. He even got an award from the Pope for defending the sacraments. To this day, if you look at the stamp of England or a coin, you'll see the image of the present Queen Elizabeth II, and she keeps the title, which she shouldn't keep, Defender of the Catholic Faith in England, DF, Defensor Fidei Catholici Ecclesiae. Henry VIII received that lovely title, bravo, but then 10 years later, Henry VIII tore England away from its Catholic roots, where it has been for these 500 years. He no longer defended the Catholic faith, which was over, by that time, 1,000 years on English soil. Henry started his own Anglican Church of England and made himself its supreme head. Why did he do this? Because Henry wanted a divorce from his queen, his wife of a 24-year marriage, which was a long time then, considering the lifespan of people. A tribunal of the Pope was convened, and the Pope did not prove or agree the marriage was invalid. Henry then would dispute that, break from the church, divorce Queen Catherine. He'd go on to marry 5 more times. He had more wives, I think, than Mickey Rooney, all right? The Catholic Church was abolished in England for centuries. We also know from the Bible, from the Gospels, that Jesus' kinsman, John the Baptizer, was beheaded by King Herod because the king was involved himself, like Henry, in a scandalous marriage. To silence John the Baptist, he was executed. King Henry VIII also executed many Catholics who oppose his divorce and his remarriage. Today in the United States of America, I think the population census of this country is about, Catholics number about close to 70 million Catholics, just Catholics. I think the total population is like 330 million. So it's almost 1/4 of the nation, like 22%, claims to be Catholic. Of course, I don't think they're always coming to Mass on Sunday, that's for sure. There it is. However, many of these 70 million, several million of the 70, have been divorced and many remarried. Many people today, I know even in my parish here, are in marriages that the Catholic Church has not yet blessed or come to recognize. So they're in a new marriage that's not sanctioned by the Church, at least not yet. One of the purposes of the tribunal is to assist these people, because it's a ministry, to bring them back into status so they can receive the sacraments worthily. So it has to inquire into a failed marriage if the person brings it to us. So the tribunal can examine the former marriage, an unhappy one perhaps, to see if the contract might be valid or not. Henry VIII lost his case, and doesn't mean everything's going to be approved. Now, why is this so? And the answer is because marriage is the only one of the 7 sacraments that is considered a contract between a man and a woman. In fact, to this day, and for all my life as a priest for over 1,000 years, or back to the apostles, the priest never actually marries anybody in the ceremony. The deacon does not, nor the bishop or the pope. We have no power to marry people. We conduct the service, we officiate, we walk them through their vows, but only the man and woman are the celebrants of their own marriage by the exchange of the vow or consent. In fact, we never really required the clergy to be there until Henry VIII and Martin Luther, when the Council of Trent then required for Catholics only that a priest or deacon be involved in the ceremony. And in some cases, since the 1960s, the Pope will allow the bishop of the diocese to allow a Catholic to marry a Protestant in their church if they ask him for that privilege. So sometimes I'll be going to the Episcopal Church or the Baptist Church if one party is Catholic and one party is, say, Baptist, and wants to be married there. They can choose, and it's allowed with permission of the bishop. However, since marriage is a contract, it can be valid or invalid, any kind of contract. You buy a house, a valid or invalid one. But in that exchange, neither party ever has the power or right to end it on their own free will, which is what Jesus is condemning. You can't just give a bill of divorce to your wife and send her packing. If the contract was not valid for very serious reasons, the church then would declare the former marriage null and void, releasing them from the bond of that marriage. I'll stop there on the tribunal part and go further into what we're really about tonight. Why is marriage so important? Why does the church protect it? Because when you marry, and most of you here either are married, a few people are. I had 3 weddings in the last 10 days, here and there, and I have several engaged couples in the last 2 weeks who've been coming in. So the season of marrying is coming back, which is nice for there. So I work with them, and the deacons have some also in their file working with couples there. Think of it this way. When I was going through seminary, I was being prepared to be ordained to the diaconate and then to the priesthood. Years of study, formation, prayer, discernment. So when a man becomes a priest, the church treats that very seriously. It's rare that the bishop would invalidly ordain someone, but some men want to leave the priesthood and enter the married life and leave the clergy. And that takes a lot of effort too, because the church treats clergy, holy orders, most seriously. But she does also with marriage and with religious life. If you're married, you are in solemn vows. You may not realize it, but it is. The wedding is so solemn and beautiful. And the church takes everybody's marriage very seriously. Why is that? Well, the second page of the Bible, which is what Spencer read for us tonight, the beautiful story of in creation, God finishes making the first human being, Adam, from the clay of the earth. Okay, and the story cuts in there. And God makes everything good and perfect. He creates everything. Nothing exists that God did not make. And when you read the creation stories, It's always read at the beginning of this most serious, beautiful night of the year, the Easter Vigil night mass before Easter morning. We start the readings with creation, beautiful narrative, and everything God makes, he steps back and sees how good and perfect it is. Nothing was wrong, nothing broken. So God created the first human being that way, and it says just before the reading tonight, he created the man in his own image and likeness. So nothing in creation is the mirror of God's magnificence and beauty except the human person. Nothing could be more beautiful and perfect than the creation of man, the very image of God. But except one thing in that lovely, charming reading. The man, Adam, was not happy. He was not happy because he was solitary. He was alone. And God kind of scratches his head. I know what's wrong. I gave Adam all these toys to play with. Here are all the animals. All of creation is yours. Why aren't you happy? And God realizes it is not good for the man to be alone. Because when God made Adam in his image, he made Adam to be relational, which means he has to have a partner to complete himself, someone who is complementary. So such a magnificent creature could only be perfected now if he had a partner. And watch the important word. For those of you who are married, it's the most important word. God did not say, oh, I'm going to make Adam the most perfect partner. No. He said, I will make him a suitable partner. The Hebrew word is very careful. A suitable partner. Oh, what does a suitable partner mean? A lot depends on that word. For example, those of you who are here tonight, if you're married, ask yourself, but don't tell me, did you marry a suitable partner? Think about that. Be careful what you say. Or, watch this, did you marry the perfect partner? Oh yeah. Or worse, did you marry a partner who thinks he is perfect? That never happens, though, does it? No, not for you here. But that's the issue. It's a very flexible word. It's a very malleable word. What God is doing, he's saying, although he makes Eve for Adam, it's the last time in history that God will ever be the matchmaker, the lienental. From that point on, when people marry, they have to choose for each other who the suitable partner is. It's their decision. And because they have to be the judge of who can I expect to spend the whole rest of my life with while I'm a very young woman or young man, who is going to be the person I'm going to be compatible with? Not perfect, but we can work out the puzzles of life together and grow together to a happy old age. Not easy to do that. You can see why marriage then is so serious and so important in the eyes of God. The very jewel of creation is the human person, and human beings are designed by God for something a little higher than just existing. They're designed for partnership. You were designed to have a teammate with us in a particular way, and I emphasize a heterosexual teammate or partner. And to this partnership of humans, the Creator bestows something a little higher yet. And we can't go into this other thing tonight for time, but God is the creator of human beings, and man and woman, when they marry, are called by God to also be participants in his creative act, which means they become procreators, procreation. Their bodies are fertile, and in their union and oneness, they have the power to bring another human being into existence. What a power is that? What a sacred power. And the sad thing is, in the world we live in today and throughout history, how many times people have trivialized both fertility and conception and human life, born and unborn. And there is nothing, in my opinion, more sinful or more evil than the deliberate destruction of another human person, whether in the womb or out of it. Because the creation or procreation of the child is not just the mother's choice or the father's. God himself is always, in fact, involved in the act of procreation and conception. So when people leave God out of it and they attempt to destroy what God himself has made, they call it in church moral theology the insult to the Creator. It's slapping God right in the face. Ooh. It is within the marriage, then, this partnership that is of divine origin, not the Congress or Supreme Court, of divine origin, that men and women will find their fulfillment over a lifetime of mutual caring, respect, forgiveness, sacrifice. All those words are different ways of saying love. And as the gospel segues carefully, Jesus prohibits divorce, he wants the monogamy, and so on, and then he segues into children, procreation. It is within marriage that children come into this world. That's the best way for children to come, not through a test tube. To be shaped and formed by such a couple who are bound together mutually and deliberately as partners. And Jesus then is speaking not just to the disciples in the end of the gospel, he's speaking to all married couples, especially to the engaged couples I work with, when he says these last lines that I'll never forget. He says, "Let the children come to me. Do not prevent them. The kingdom of God belongs to such as these." And there's that fullness of the mission and calling of the married life.